Disclaimer. There's a moment in life when everything seems still. You've put in the work, you've made the sacrifices, you've given your heart, your sweat, your time, yet nothing seems to be moving. You look around and everyone else is winning, thriving, soaring, but you're still waiting. And in that silence, doubt creeps in. Did I do enough? Am I even on the right path? Did I miss my chance? But I need you to understand something right now. Waiting is not punishment. Waiting is preparation. See, the problem is most people see waiting as wasted time. But the truth is, while you're waiting, something bigger is being built. You're being shaped, stretched, strengthened. Every great success, every great story, every great champion had a season of waiting. And the only thing that separated them from the ones who gave up, trust. You have to trust the process, even when there's no evidence that it's working, even when doors close, even when prayers seem to go unanswered, even when the people you started with move on and you're standing there alone. You have to trust that the work you put in, the nights you stayed up, the sacrifices you made, they are not in vain. Discipline and faith go hand in hand. See, everybody wants success, but not everybody wants the discipline that leads to it. You can't just want the prize, you have to respect the process. Because if you can't trust in the small, quiet moments, what makes you think you'll handle the weight of the big ones? Some of you are asking for things that your character isn't ready to hold yet. And if you get it too soon, you won't keep it. But here's the good news. The waiting room is not where dreams go to die. It's where warriors are built. It's where giants are trained. It's where the fire gets hotter, not to burn you, but to refine you. When your moment comes, and trust me, it will, you won't just walk into it. You will be ready for it. So while you wait, trust. Trust that nothing is wasted. Trust that the preparation is just as important as the destination. Trust that your time is coming. And when it does, you will not just succeed, you will soar. There's a story about a bamboo tree. You take the seed, plant it in the soil, water it, nurture it, and for the first year, nothing happens. You keep watering it, keep tending to the soil, and still there's no sign of life. 2 years pass, nothing. 3 years, 4 years, still nothing. Most people would have given up by now. They would have called it a waste of time, a lost cause. But in the 5th year, something incredible happens. That bamboo tree doesn't just grow, it explodes out of the ground. In just 6 weeks, it soars up to 90 feet tall. Now let me ask you, did that tree really grow in 6 weeks? Or did it grow over the 5 years it spent underground developing its roots? Because that's what waiting really is. It's the season where your roots grow deep. It's not wasted time. It's the most important time. See, we live in a world that glorifies speed. Fast money, fast fame, fast success. Everybody wants to go viral overnight, be discovered instantly, become great now. But the truth is, anything built fast usually falls apart just as quickly. Look at nature. The strongest trees don't grow overnight. They take years. The most magnificent mountains weren't shaped in a day. They took centuries. Everything powerful takes time to build. And yet, when we find ourselves in a season of waiting, we panic. We get impatient. We think if it's not happening now, it's not happening at all. But what if I told you that your waiting is doing more for you than your winning ever could? That this period, this silence, this feeling of being stuck is actually the moment where your future is being built. You see, in the seasons where it feels like nothing is happening, everything is happening. You're learning patience. You're developing resilience. You're gaining wisdom. Because if success came too soon, you wouldn't be ready to handle it. Think about an athlete. Before they ever step foot in the spotlight, they spend years in the gym, on the field, in the dark, training, sweating, failing, getting back up. Think about the musician who spends thousands of hours practicing before they ever get on stage. Think about the entrepreneur who spends years working behind the scenes, grinding, building, learning from failure before their business ever takes off. You don't just arrive at greatness, you grow into it. And the truth is, most people don't fail because they're not talented enough. They don't fail because they don't have potential. They fail because they give up in the waiting. They walk away right before their breakthrough. They convince themselves that because they don't see results, it must not be working. But success doesn't show up on your schedule. It shows up when you're ready. And sometimes readiness means waiting. Do you know how diamonds are made? They start as simple pieces of coal buried deep in the earth. But over years of intense pressure and heat, they transform into something rare, something valuable, something unbreakable. If you rush the process, you don't get a diamond, you get dust. And that's exactly what happens when we try to force success before we're ready. We crumble under the weight of it. So when you feel stuck, when you feel like nothing is moving, when you feel like you've been doing everything right and still haven't seen the results, keep going, because you are not being ignored. You are being prepared. The struggle you're going through right now is shaping you into the person who can handle the life you've been praying for. The doors that haven't opened yet aren't locked. They're just waiting for the right version of you to walk through them. There will be moments in your life when everything is quiet. No applause, no recognition, no signs that what you're doing is even working. You've put in the effort, you've stayed consistent, you've given it your all, but there's just silence. And silence can be the loudest, most painful thing when you're expecting results. That's when doubt creeps in. That's when fear whispers in your ear, telling you it's all for nothing. That's when you start questioning if you're even on the right path. But let me tell you something, just because you don't see movement doesn't mean there isn't progress. Just because the results haven't arrived yet doesn't mean the work isn't paying off. The process is happening. The foundation is being laid. And the silence, that's the test. That's where most people quit. Not because they weren't capable, not because they weren't talented, but because they couldn't handle not knowing. They couldn't keep going when they weren't getting immediate feedback. See, we've been conditioned to expect instant results. We want the seed we planted yesterday to grow into a tree today. We want the effort we put in last week to pay off this week. And when it doesn't, we assume something is wrong. But nothing is wrong. The process just isn't on your timeline. It's on a timeline greater than you. And if you abandon it too soon, you'll never get to see what was coming. Look at a caterpillar. It spends its early life crawling, inching forward, barely making progress. Then one day it stops. It enters a cocoon, and from the outside it looks like nothing is happening. It looks like stillness. It looks like an ending. But inside, everything is changing. Inside, the struggle is transforming it into something greater. And then at the right time, it breaks free, not as the thing it was, but as what it was always meant to become. That's what the process is doing for you. It's reshaping you, refining you, molding you into the person you need to be before you can step into what's waiting for you. Because success isn't just about talent, it's about resilience, it's about endurance, it's about being able to push forward when everything around you is telling you to stop. Think about the people you admire, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders. They all had a season of silence. They all had moments where they were grinding in the dark, with no guarantees, no validation, no signs that their work was making a difference. But they didn't stop. They didn't quit just because they weren't getting instant rewards. Imagine if Michael Jordan had given up when he was cut from his high school team. Imagine if Oprah had walked away after being fired from her first job. Imagine if Steve Jobs had quit after being forced out of his own company. The world would be a different place because the greatest successes weren't built in moments of triumph. They were built in moments of struggle. You have to trust the process, even when there's no proof that it's working, even when the silence is deafening, even when you feel like you're doing everything right and still not getting the results. Because the process doesn't work on your timeline. It works on the right timeline. The farmer doesn't dig up his crops every day to see if they're growing. He plants the seeds, he waters them, and he trusts that if he keeps doing the work, the harvest will come. But if he gets impatient, if he stops watering, if he gives up before the roots take hold, he loses everything. And that's what happens to most people. They stop just before the breakthrough. They walk away just before the shift. But the people who make it, the people who win, are the ones who learn to push forward, even when nothing is telling them to. Even when it would be easier to stop. Because one day the silence will break. One day the doors will open. One day everything you've been working for will come rushing in. And people will call it overnight success. But you'll know the truth. You'll know about the nights you kept going when no one was watching. You'll know about the sacrifices you made when no one was clapping. You'll know that your success wasn't luck. It was earned. So trust the process, even when it's silent, even when it's slow, even when it feels like nothing is happening, because something is happening. And when the time is right, when you are ready, the world will see exactly what that silence was preparing you for. Discipline and faith are two sides of the same coin. One without the other is incomplete. Faith is believing that what you are working for will come to pass, but discipline is waking up every single day and putting in the work even when you don't feel like it. Faith is seeing the vision, but discipline is doing what is necessary to bring that vision to life. Too many people rely on faith alone, hoping that if they just believe hard enough, their dreams will fall into their laps. Others rely only on discipline, grinding endlessly without any real trust that things will work out in their favor. But the real power, the real transformation, that happens when faith and discipline move together. Think about an athlete training for the Olympics. They don't wake up one morning and decide they want a gold medal, pray about it, and then sit back waiting for it to appear. No, they show up every single day. They train when their body aches. They push forward when their mind is screaming for them to stop. They commit to the process even when it feels impossible. But alongside that discipline, they carry faith. Faith that their hard work will pay off. Faith that their sacrifice will be worth it. Faith that they are preparing for something greater than what they can see right now. Because here's the truth. Discipline without faith leads to burnout. When you're working day in and day out without any belief in a greater purpose, eventually the weight of it all will crush you. You'll start asking yourself, why am I even doing this? Is this even worth it? And that doubt will eat away at you, causing you to either quit or resent the process. That's what happens to so many people. They work and they grind, but because they don't have faith, they lose sight of why they started. And without a reason to keep going, they stop. On the other hand, faith without discipline leads to disappointment. If you believe in your dreams but aren't willing to put in the effort, you're not really dreaming, you're just wishing. You can't sit back and expect opportunities to magically fall into place. Faith without work is empty. It's discipline that turns faith into reality. It's discipline that separates those who talk about success from those who achieve it. Look at anyone who has ever made it to the top of their field. Every single one of them had moments where they wanted to give up. Every single one of them faced obstacles, failures, setbacks. But what kept them going wasn't just their work ethic. It was their belief that their sacrifices meant something. They believed in the process, in themselves, in the purpose behind what they were doing. That's what carried them through the hardest days. And make no mistake, there will be hard days. There will be times when you don't see results. Times when you start to wonder if you're wasting your time. Times when quitting will seem like the easier choice. But that's when discipline and faith become non-negotiable. That's when you have to trust the work you've been putting in. That's when you have to remind yourself why you started. Picture a builder constructing a house. The first thing they do isn't putting up walls or decorating rooms. It's laying the foundation. And that foundation, it takes time. It takes effort. It's hard work that for a long time doesn't look like much. But if the builder skips that step, if they rush the process, what happens? The house collapses. That's what happens when you chase success without discipline. You might get somewhere quickly, but without a strong foundation, it won't last. And that foundation isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet moments, in the times when no one is watching, in the early mornings and late nights when you're putting in work that no one will ever see. It's built when you push through exhaustion, when you show up despite doubt, when you choose consistency over comfort. But to build that kind of discipline, you need faith. You need to believe that every hour, every sacrifice, every small step is leading you somewhere. Because it is. It might not happen today. It might not happen tomorrow. But the work you put in will pay off. The process is never easy, but it's always worth it. There's a reason why only a small percentage of people ever reach their full potential. It's not because they were born with something special. It's not because they were lucky. It's because when everyone else stopped, when everyone else made excuses, when everyone else let fear and doubt take over, they kept going. They had the discipline to stay the course, and they had the faith to believe that one day it would all come together. You don't get to choose when success shows up. You don't get to control when the doors open. But you do get to control your effort. You do get to control your mindset. You do get to control how much heart you put into your journey. And when faith and discipline align, that's when the breakthrough happens. That's when you go from wishing for something to making it real. So keep working, keep believing, keep pushing, because the ones who win, they're not always the smartest. They're not always the most talented, but they are always the ones who refuse to quit. And that choice, that commitment is what makes all the difference. There's a place that every successful person has been, but nobody wants to stay in. It's a place of uncertainty, frustration, and silence. It's the waiting room. The place between where you are the place where nothing seems to be happening, where progress feels invisible, where you're doing everything right but still don't see results. And this is where most people give up. This is where people walk away, thinking that because they don't see movement, nothing is happening. But the truth is, the waiting room is where the breakthrough is being built. The waiting room is where your story is shaped. The waiting room is where you either quit or grow into the person who is ready for the next level. Nobody likes waiting. It feels like wasted time. You look around and it seems like everyone else is moving ahead while you're stuck. You start comparing. You start questioning. You start wondering if maybe you took the wrong path. But what if the waiting room isn't a punishment? What if it's preparation? What if this season of waiting is the very thing making you strong enough to handle what's coming next? Think about an arrow. Before it can launch forward, it has to be pulled back. The tension, the resistance, the pressure, it's all necessary. If you let go too soon, it won't reach its full potential. But if you hold, if you trust, if you let the tension build, when the moment comes, that arrow flies. That's exactly how breakthroughs happen. They don't come when you demand them. They come when you're ready. And readiness isn't just about skill. It's about character. It's about endurance. It's about who you become while you wait. Think about a seed planted in the ground. If you didn't know how growth worked, you'd look at that seed after weeks of watering it and think nothing is happening. You'd assume it was a failure. You'd be tempted to dig it up. But what you don't see is what's happening beneath the surface. The roots are forming. The foundation is strengthening. And when the time is right, it breaks through the soil. Not because it just started growing, but because it spent time growing where no one could see. That's you. Your breakthrough isn't something that suddenly appears out of nowhere. It's something that is being built right now, in the waiting, in the silence, in the moments when you feel forgotten. But just like that seed, if you stop too soon, if you give up before your roots are deep enough, you'll never get to see what was meant for you. Some of the greatest success stories of all time were built in the waiting room. The moments before everything changed were the hardest, the longest, the most painful. But they were also necessary, because if you get something too soon, you won't be ready for it. You won't know how to sustain it. You won't have the strength to hold it. The problem is, we want breakthroughs without the process. We want to skip the waiting, skip the struggle, skip the part where we have to trust in something we can't see. But breakthroughs don't happen in comfort. They don't happen when things are easy. They happen when you've gone through the fire, when you've stayed consistent, when you've proven not just to the world, but to yourself that you are ready. Look at a butterfly. Before it can fly, it has to go through transformation. And that process, it's not pretty. It's not easy. The caterpillar goes into the cocoon, and inside it completely dissolves. It breaks down. It becomes something unrecognizable before it becomes what it was always meant to be. And here's the thing, if you try to help it, if you cut the cocoon open too soon, the butterfly never develops the strength it needs to fly. It has to struggle. It has to go through the process. The resistance is what makes it strong enough to survive. That's what the waiting room is doing for you. It's not holding you back. It's not wasting your time. It's giving you the strength, the wisdom, the patience, the endurance you need to not just reach your breakthrough, but to keep it when it comes. And that's why so many people miss their moment. They leave before the process is complete. They mistake the delay for denial. They assume that just because it's taking longer than they expected, it means it's not going to happen. But time doesn't mean no. Time means preparation. You have to trust that the waiting room is not a dead end. It's a doorway. And when that door opens, it will lead to something greater than you imagine. But only if you stay long enough to walk through it. Only if you refuse to quit when it's hard. Only if you understand that your struggle is not a stop sign. It's a setup. The people who win, the people who make it, are not the ones who had it easy. They are the ones who stayed. They are the ones who endured. They are the ones who held on to the vision even when there was no proof that it was working. And when their moment came, they didn't just walk into it. They ran because they were ready. So if you're in the waiting room right now, don't fight it. Don't resent it. Don't rush it. This is where your breakthrough is being built. This is where you are becoming who you were meant to be. Stay patient. Stay faithful. Stay disciplined. Because when that door opens, and it will, you're not just going to step into your breakthrough. You're going to soar.